Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki by regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 22nd day of July 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are studying the 7th canto, The Science of God, 10th chapter, Prahlad, the best among exalted devotees, text number 9. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasi stitan tarhi eva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Not today? Okay. Vimunchati yada kaman manavo manasistitan taryeva pundarikaksha bhagavat vaya kalpate. Anyone online?
Vimunchati yada kaman
Vimunchati yada kaman
manavo manasistitan
manavo manasistitan
tahi eva pundarikaksha
taryeva pundarikaksha
bhagavat vaya kalpate.
bhagavat vaya kalpate. Vimunchati gives up. Yada, whenever. kaman, all material desires, manavaha, human society, manasi, within the mind, stitan, situated, tahi, at that time only, eva, indeed, pundarika aksha, O lotus-eyed Lord, Bhagavat Vaya, to be equally opulent as the Lord. Kalpate, becomes eligible. Translation. O my Lord, of course, this is Prahlad continuing to pray to Lord Nrsingadev. O my Lord, when a human being is able to give up all the material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. Purport. Atheistic men sometimes criticize a devotee by saying, if you do not want to take any benediction from the Lord, and if the servant of the Lord is as opulent as the Lord himself, why do you ask for the benediction of being engaged as the Lord's servant? Close quote. Sridhar Swami comments, Bhagavat Vaya Bhagavat Saman Aishwaryaya. Bhagavatva, becoming as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not mean becoming one with Him or equal to Him, although in the spiritual world the servant is equally as opulent as the master. The servant of the Lord is engaged in the service of the Lord as a servant friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover, all of whom are equally as opulent as the Lord. This is acintya-bhedābheda-tattva. The master and servant are different, yet equal in opulence. This is the meaning of the simultaneous difference from the Supreme Lord and oneness with Him. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So what does that mean? Becomes equally opulent as the Lord. Does it mean that we can create unlimited universes? That we own all the wealth in the universe? So what does it mean? There are different kinds of liberation we hear about, which devotees generally don't covet, and will certainly neglect if there's not the opportunity for service to the Lord. But in the Vaikuntha planets, these are often very prominent. So the first one is sayujya, which means merging into the body of the Lord, which devotees reject as anathema. You can look up what that means later. It means something you hate from the bottom of your heart. So that's there. But then there are four others that are acceptable if they're also accompanied by devotional service. And one is Salokya, which means living on the same planet. Just like you go to Vaikuntha planet, you're there on the planet of Vishnu, or even Goloka, you're there with Krishna. So that's Salokya. This is an opulence that you can get. And then there's Sarshti, which means to have the same opulence. Samipya means to be always associated with the Lord. And Sarupya, have the same form of the Lord. So these are very prominent in Vaikuntha. Certainly they're on the same planet of the Lord, and they have the same form of the Lord. You've heard of that. Everyone has four hands. Of course, they're lacking the Kaustubha gem and the special ornaments of Krishna, but everyone more or less looks alike. They're also associated with the Lord. And Sarshti, they have the same ornaments, and so they kind of have the same opulence. So that's one way of understanding this. But another is, if you think about what's going on in Goloka Vrindavan, right? Goloka Vrindavan is far above Vaikuntha. I don't know what they do in Vaikuntha. Do they sing prayers to the Lord all the time? Because there don't seem to be any Leela going on there. But anyway, everyone's happy to be there in their awe and reverence mood, and that's one destination for Vaishnavas. But that's not really what Gaudiya Vaishnavas aspire for. We want to regain our original rasa with the Supreme, with the Akila Rasamrita Murti. This is the first words of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Akila Rasamrita Murti. In defining who Krishna is in this regard. Because Krishna can be, defined, Ishvara Parama Krishna. He's the Supreme Ishvara, Parameshvara. That's one very important designation, Hardly complete, But in Lord Chaitanya's line, there's the paramountcy, if you will, supremacy of rasa. Rasa is the governing factor, ultimately. And rasa was given that name mellow. I remember when I first read that, because in English, mellow was an adjective. It's not really a noun. But that was the word that Bhaktisiddhanta used in English that he felt expressed it. So we adopt that word. It's in the Nectar of Devotion. But what is a rasa? We experience perverted rasas here. There's something called a rasa, but it's not like in the spiritual world, the pure, where you have the pure form. And they're more or less like we read about. There's servant rasa, But here in this world, it's almost always perverted because these are getting paid. So it's not pure, it doesn't like to serve you. But there also, element is there sometimes. Where you like to serve someone who's very exalted or something, you'll take an opportunity to serve, just for the sake of wanting to serve, to please the person. So that's there. And there's also, of course, friendly rasa. Everyone has some friends that you can confide in, that you relate to, that you have fun with, And the parental rasa is obviously there, and the conjugal rasa is there. But the problem is, in this world, there are reflections. In other words, it doesn't. You don't get the kind of pleasure you get from serving Krishna or being Krishna's friend. There, it produces this feeling of bliss and happiness that doesn't end or doesn't diminish, and is inconceivably ever increasing, especially in Goloka Vrindavan. So that's out of, beyond the bounds of our imagination as it is. But that's the nature of it there. So that's why there be perverted reflections here. You make friends with someone, but if somehow things go wrong, you can become enemies, right? Even parents and children. The children go crazy and kill the parents. You read stories the parents kill the children. It's horrible. But, that's in extreme cases. But the point is that over time and with remoteness, everything weakens. Your mother is 75 years old, you're 56, you got work to do, and so forth. So you call her once a week, you say hello, But that same mood of loving dependence, when you were 4 years old or 3 years old, and you ran into your mother's arms, and it's not there anymore. You can remember it, but it's not there. So that's why here the rasas are just pale reflections, but because they're there, and we don't know anything else, we'll keep trying to enjoy those rasas. And that's what conditioned life means. Frustration. Inevitably it comes to frustration because of time and because of the body. It's all mediated through the body. The body is fragile, the body is temporal. So it's just a lot of frustration. And in the process of doing that, of trying to enjoy these rasas, even these abominable things that we hear, people take all these drugs in order to enjoy, that's a kind of a ghastly rasa. It's really ghastly because it's so obviously self-destructive. But because people are in that lower mode, this is what they try to do to counteract the misery of being in that mode, and it just gets you more and more wrapped up. It's a syndrome, So back to the verse now. Here, it's very positive here, especially the translation. My Lord, when a human being is able to give up all the material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. So it's like, if you don't want it, that's the first qualification for getting it, right? Because of material desire, if you think having opulence, all right, yeah, come on, let me have it. Opulence like God, then I'll really be powerful. And this is what the perverted reflection of that domination and that power and that controlling thing is there in the most demoniac forces here that you see. The personifications of demonism. We have the perfect example of Hiranyakashipu. He's not Parameshvara, but he really wants to be Parameshvara. So he performs these ridiculous austerities. With, all of his flesh was eaten by the ants, but somehow by the power of his will and the practice, he was able to keep his prana circulating in his bones. Inconceivable. So he became extremely powerful, and he really was ruling the universe, basically, But it was all an illusion. I mean, he really wasn't all powerful, and that's Krishna comes and he kills Hiranyakashipu in the form of Lord Nrsingadev. And meanwhile, you have this perfect example of Prahlad, who is so transcendental and so absorbed in remembering Krishna that even these horrific tortures and threats to kill him had no effect. It's truly remarkable. And Prabhupada, I remember when he was speaking about, because some of you may know, I picked out these two ashtakas within the Bhagavatam. One is in the teachings of Kapila Dev, right near his beginning of his teachings to his mother in chapter 25. And starting text 20, there are 8 verses describing the importance of associating with sadhus. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangashtaka. And then there's another one near the end of the 12th canto, in the, I think, 12th or 13th chapter. And this is all about the glories of hearing and chanting, Krishna Katha. And there's 3 verses in there that are practically identical to the 3 verses in the 5th chapter of the first canto that Prabhupada would always quote. One of the most famous is Tadbhag Vasargo Janataga Viplavo. Does that ring a bell with anyone? Prabhupada took that verse and put it in his preface, which means that this was an important verse for his writing the book. The preface describes how the book became, how you came to write the book. It's different than the foreword. The foreword generally is a little different, and the introduction gives a summary of what's going on. Foreword is often written by a third person in appreciation of the book. So anyway, how did Prabhupada come to write this book? Well, he doesn't tell the story about how he was distributing BTGs, and one of the persons who got them, or who was getting them regularly, said, you should really, these BTG, Bhakti Godhead magazine, he called it a magazine, a few pages of newsprint, basically, it's very light. People will read it once but then discard it, but if you write books, then they'll last, and they'll have a much more greater impact. So Prabhupada took that seriously. He took it as an instruction from Krishna, and he began, I don't know if he suspended, I think he did. I think he suspended the BTG. And he began writing the first canto with so much difficulty. There's no computers or anything, he couldn't dictate. So he had to type it out, and my high school education, one of the most valuable things later on I thought that I learned there, not the most valuable, was how to type. We had a typing class, 10 fingers, touch typing. Probably didn't have that, so he's using 2 fingers on of course, a manual typewriter, typing out the whole first canto. It's amazing. So, but he said there, this Tadbhag Vasargo, recognizing that his English was not perfect, and that there would be so many mistakes, he tried to get all the printing mistakes out of there. That's one of the things that I became conscious of recently. That he got printer's proofs, and he would make notes on it, and would go back to fix the mistakes that he found. Yeah. And just a side note, as Maharaj would say, that there's this whole question of the Bhagavad Gita or just Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if I've ever explained this. And when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita before I came, and I had and it was always the Bhagavad Gita, just like it's the Bible or the Quran, right? If you start saying I'm reading the Bible, I'm reading Bible and Quran, those who are religious Muslims or religious Christians will think, oh, you're sliding the book. You forgot the the. It's like a Shri, Srimad. You see. So if it says Srimad Bhagavad Gita, you don't need to put the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. You got it with Srimad. But if it just says Bhagavad Gita, I wondered about that, because that's all over the Bhagavad Gita and many other books. So I looked at the first canto and the second canto, which Prabhupada typed out completely in India but didn't print. He brought it with him in manuscript form, big manuscript, second canto. 99%. The Bhagavad Gita. He called it the Bhagavad Gita in the first canto. And the second canto, it's even 99.9% the Bhagavad Gita, because he went back and fixed it wherever it wasn't. And in its manuscript, by the time he got to the manuscript, he was just typing the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. But when it came time to start dictating and also typing, every stroke counted, So he would also leave the the out, or when he was speaking. And that became a standard. Even when he put the the in, they would take it out because the standard was without it. So anyway, all the books starting with the Ishopanishad, and then the Krishna book, and then the CC, with the does in. And I think I've convinced my co-editors in the Bhagavad Gita review to put the in there. So that's going to be the. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back to the original title of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. How many of you have actually seen that little blue book? We printed facsimiles, the abridged version that first came out, because they wouldn't print this 1,000-page book, villain. We didn't have our own press or anything. So we had to sell it, So that's a miracle how it got published, but they would only publish the abridged version, with not all the purports. Prabhupada wasn't happy with that. But they did have the title, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I don't know if I'll be able to get the da up there again. But anyway, within the book, you'll find all the das. All right, that was just a sidelight. So now here, back to this. So what does this actually mean? First of all, it's interesting. Only when you give up all material desires do you become eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. Well, why would you want to possess it if you don't have any material desires? You see? So it's not the wealth. I mean, I'm thinking of like, okay, so it means that the boys running around with Krishna in Goloka, every day, enjoying sakyaras in all the different varieties. So, of course, Krishna has his special ornaments. He has the Kaustubha gem, and he thinks that this is Krishna. But they also have, nice dress on, and many of them have flutes, and they play the flute. So there's not that much difference between them, where they can be put under yoga maya and treat Krishna just like one of them, or even get on his case and insult him. The friendly insults, in other words, tease him as if you're equal. So that's they've got pretty much the same dress. There's no huge manifestation of palaces and gold and things like that in the highest point of Goloka Vrindavan, which is the farm. It's farmland. It's rural, you see. And but of course they recognize Krishna as supreme. He's the center of everyone's love, and he's the center of everyone's attention. And so that's what I understand from this, because we have a definition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead given by Parashara Muni. It's worth memorizing this. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasakshriya jnana vairagyaschaiva shannam bhaga hitingana. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, which the very word which means he who owns so many opulences. Bhaga is opulence, Van means possessor. So Aishwarya Samagrasa, he has all the wealth, everything. Our problem is we think we have some of it, but he has all the wealth. Aishwarya Samagrasya. Viryasya Yashasakshriya. He has infinite power, and which he demonstrates, like lifting over downhill, creating thousands of universes. We can't even imagine possessing that. We don't even want it. Viryasya Yashashak, fame. Not, Prabhupada made Krishna, the word named Krishna famous, but everyone knew about God. Everyone has some conception of God, even in primitive societies, they often worship some, So in that sense, he's always famous. And of course, Prabhupada has actually made the name Krishna famous, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So no one can be as famous as Krishna for any length of time. You find, Napoleon or Caesar or any of these, Prabhupada would say Hitler, they're very famous for some time, or infamous, let's say. But after some time, people forget about them. They don't even know. They may have to, oh yeah, I remember reading about that guy in the history book, But not like God, who's always present. So all famous, Aishwarya Samavirya Yashashak and Shriya. This is very important. Beauty. he's the most beautiful figure, human-like figure that we can possibly imagine, and we can't imagine. So now what does that mean? Because you don't hear that. I don't know if the Christian God is described that way. Not really, right? Mostly, we don't know anything about like what he looks like, right? He doesn't. But that's a very important aspect, because that's especially part of the rasa, part of the attraction. Even the name Krishna, you'll find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita a fascinating couple of verses describing the name Rama and the name Krishna, what is it? Oh God, Krishna. I forget the Sanskrit. Sorry, but it describes that Krish is the all attractive. Describes the all attractive nature of Krishna, and Na is the bliss. Na is the blissfulness. You see, and therefore the two syllables Krishna describe the supreme Brahman, Para-Brahman. It's described in these two syllables. Now, what about Rama? Rama, Rameti, Rameti. I forget. I'm forgetting my slokas. I'm not reviewing them enough. But it says that the Rama is the actual unlimited happiness, and therefore the word Rama is also the supreme Brahman. I'm embarrassed not knowing that verse. It's famous. It's quoted in the purport in the Bhagavad Gita. So the point is that Krishna possesses all these opulences, and he's very much willing to share them for the sake of rasa. He's not going to share them. He's not going to help you become, rich, so that you can get more and more ignorant. That he'll put in the charge of Maya Devis. You want to stay. You're still covered. Okay, you can work like a dog and try to get wealthy to enjoy this world, but you'll find out how much suffering it is, eventually. And I'm going to keep sending my servants and make the book available, so that if you come to your senses, there will be an access. You can actually learn how silly it is to try to covet opulences on your own to try to enjoy separate from the Lord. That is our main fallacy as living entities. And so, giving up all material desires in the mind. So this is the emphasis on the vairagya part of our discipline. Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga shikshatameka purushak purana. This is a prayer that was composed by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya when Lord Chaitanya revealed himself, and he became a first-class Vaishnava instead of a first-class Mayavadi. And so he said, Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga shikshata purushak purana. You are the same ancient person, Krishna, who's come in this age to teach devotion to yourself, characterized by detachment and knowledge. Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shikshartam, for the sake of instructing it. The same eternal person, Purushak Purana. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari, you've taken on the form of Krishna Chaitanya. You're not exactly in the same form as Krishna was, Kripambudiyas tamaham prapadye. You are an ocean of mercy, and I offer my obeisances. Now this verse was sent, and another verse, not quite as famous, was sent to Lord Chaitanya to read by Sarvabhauma and his aide. But Lord Chaitanya's servant Govinda intercepted them, and he looked at him, and he took the precaution of writing them on the outside of the Gambhira. You know why? Because Lord Chaitanya did not like to be addressed as Vishnu, as God. So this verse glorified him. You were the same Krishna who's appeared, And so he immediately ripped up the leaf. But the verses were written on the outside, and the devotees memorized them, and that's how they came down to us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Vairagya Vidya, these go together. The knowledge and detachment. Knowledge and detachment. And you see perverted reflections of it all the time in this material world. I remember when they finally put the warning on the pack of cigarettes, I mean, it was obvious that it was so damaging. Here's this multi-billion-dollar company selling this poison and advertising old Marlboro Man. When I was growing up, everyone was smoking Marlboros, and the kids, when you started smoking, you started smoking Marlboros. So the advertising is an agent of Maya to bewilder your intelligence so that you'll buy the thing. And in this case, it happened to be poison. It's a drug, the nicotine. So the hope was, it's kind of, why not just outlaw them, Well, no, because they contribute to the politicians, so they buy their way in. So, all right, there's some sanity. At least we'll put the notice on the pack of cigarettes. Warning, the cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health. I think it started with maybe, and then it came into is hazardous. So this is the idea. By the knowledge, you become detached. So it's harmful to my health. What do I need this for? Don't even start. It's after you start and get addicted that really covers your intelligence, even though I know it may damage my health. Well, maybe, it won't hurt me so much, whatever. You just try to put that out of your mind and smoke. And then before, we had one lady, she was a devotee many years ago. And she joined late. She was I think, 50 years old when she became attracted to Krishna, Sincere lady, but she'd been smoking for years, smoking. And she wasn't smoking as a devotee, of course, but she had COPD. Some of you know what that is? What is it? Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's common for people who smoke a long time. And gradually it got worse. She was coming to class. She had to take a oxygen, thing with her. And it was tragic. Finally, I got a call from her. Well, this looks like it. I can't breathe. I'm going to the hospital. So myself and Rajendra Nandana, we went to sing to her, and she was on the breathing machines and everything. And so we were singing Hare Krishna. There's kind of a tune, probably the original tune. You'll see that's often Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You can sing it for hours, So, but she had 3 kids who were scattered around the United States, but I got the call and they all came in. I think 2 sons and a daughter. They were in the mid-30s or so to 30. And so the time came, we're chanting. Then the daughter, I think it was the daughter, came into the room and said, okay, we're going to tell the doctors to discontinue everything. There's no hope of her coming out of this state. Okay, so I said, well, okay, can we keep chanting because it's important? He said, no, this is a private family thing, So what are you going to do? They're a family. So we went a couple of doors down and sat. There was a little waiting room there, and we was waiting, So maybe it was 10 or 15 minutes. One of the sons came in. You've heard this story before. Some of you may have heard it. And they said, you better come back in because she's not letting go. We pulled all the plugs and everything, but she's trying to breathe, trying to say, because she wants to have you guys come back in. She realized. So we came back in and we chanted, and within 2 minutes she was gone. We was chanting Hare Krishna. I've had several experiences like that. So the point is that one of the side benefits actually of Krishna consciousness is detachment. This is why it's worth studying these verses, beginning first canto, 2nd chapter, text 6 through text 21. It's a complete lesson on Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada would often lecture on these verses. And at one point I said, why don't we make a book out of this? Just like we have teachings of Kapila Dev, we have the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, or you have the teachings of Queen Kunti. You take Prabhupada's the original text, verse, synonyms, translation, purports, everything. Then you append selections from the lectures he gave on that verse. And that's how the Queen Kunti book came, and that's how the Kapila book came. So here's another one. There's 21 verses here with a lot of, purports and lectures. And so we did that. I made that. It's called Dharma, the Way of Transcendence. You may have seen it. We used to have some here. We distributed for some time here, but it didn't take off. It wasn't a favorite, so much. So that happens with some of the books. But in India, I think they still distribute it. They reprinted it like that. So what does it say there? In the second verse in the series, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojayat Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayata Hoitakam. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga, devotional service to Krishna, Vasudeva, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, engage in that, quickly generates. Janayati is a cognate word. You can practically remember what it means. It means generate. Janayati, generate. Janayat Ashu always means quickly. What? Vairagyam. Janayatyashi Vairagyam, and knowledge. Jnanam cha yadahoitukam. Without any extraneous effort. It means automatically. Why is that? Because the whole process of bhakti is simply one of purification. And what is it we're trying to purify ourselves? Anartas. Anartas are things that we don't want. We think we want, but we don't want them. Or they're results of sinful activities. And all of our attachments for the things of this world are anartas. Those are anartas, because they keep us coming back again to suffer birth, old age, disease, and death. And you're always frustrated. It's always hope against hope. Natevedu svartakatimi vishnam durashayaye baharattamanana. This is one of Prahlad's instructions to his father. That these people, in the previous verse he describes, Matirna Krishna Pada, he's saying to his father, don't worry, Dad, you'll never become Krishna conscious. Matirna Krishna Pada Daksvatova Mito Vipati Grihavratanam. Those who have taken a vow, are completely determined to stay within material life, especially material household life, Grihavratanam. Adanta Gobhir, their senses are uncontrolled. Vishatam Tamishram, they enter more and more into darkness. And then the money quote, the line that everyone can memorize, Punak, Punak, Charvita, Charvananam, again and again chewing the chewed. This is material life. You've chewed it before and in a previous life, or even in this life, but now I'm going to try a slight variation. And of course, it's always, frustrating. So such a person, he says, they don't know that the real goal of their life is Vishnu, is Krishna. Nate vidu sva arta, means the goal of the soul, the real value of the soul. Sva arta, nate vidu svarta gatim, the goal is Vishnu. And therefore, durashaya. Durashaya ye bahirarta manina. Their attention is focused externally on this material world rather than internally on the Krishna. Bahirartamani, looking for external things of value to bring into control and enjoy. But it's durashya. It's a hope against hope. It's a hope never to be fulfilled. The hope of happiness and security on this plane, in this material world, is fool's gold. It cannot be attained. The illusion of it can be attained for a little while, but it's not what we want. You get old, you can't enjoy, you die, you leave everything, and you terrorize, I don't know what's going to happen. It always ends in that. So therefore, if we know that's the knowledge, then we'll work to become detached from these things by sublimating the desire into serving Krishna. And the center of the whole thing is this mantra, where Krishna has agreed to be present and attract us just by the sound vibration. It's so potent if you really dedicate yourself to chanting nicely and hearing and avoiding the offenses, you'll be attracted to Krishna and vairagya will be automatic. That's what this verse says. You see? So this is a tremendous gift. It's the most valuable thing. Forget about winning the lottery. That just keeps you, forget it. That's poison. That's like smoking cigarettes. So what's really valuable in this world, And the valuable thing is this detachment, and then you become eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. What are you going to do with it? You use it to serve Krishna. You're not going to go back to trying to covet the opulence for your own. The point you've given up all those material desires. You're giving them up means you become purified. So when Krishna gives you some opulence, this is a great chance to serve Krishna, right? And you have some skill or whatever powers you have of your senses, your mind, your intelligence, let me use it for Krishna. That's actual, purification and vairagya. And this verse, which I came up in a class recently, I memorized years ago, is such an important verse. Bhakti Padeshanubhavo Virakti, here's the Virakti again, it's Vairagya. Bhakti Padeshanubhavo Virakta Anyata Chaisha Trika Ekakala Papudyamana Taksu Tushti Pushti Chudapaya Unugasam. This is the one where comparing the experience of a pure devotee to eating a wonderful feast. And I always like the feast that comes on the Shringadev's appearance days, because it's a late feast. It was at moonrise. It was 7, 8 o'clock. And you sit down, and what it says is, for those who are bhakti pareshanubhavrakta anya chaisha trika ekakala papudyamanasya, those who are fully surrendered. In other words, the devotees who are fully surrendered and are engaging in devotional service, 3 things occur practically simultaneously. Bhakti, which means attainment of love for Krishna, prema bhakti. Para isha anubhava, the direct experience of the presence of the Lord. You see? And with these 2 comes virakti from anything else. Complete detachment from anything else. You've completely given up the material desires in the mind. So he compares it to this taking a wonderful feast of prasadam, So tushti pushti chodapaya nagasam. Tushti, that's the para isha anubhava, the direct experience of the Lord. That's satisfying. It's so pleasing, just like you're tasting the different varieties of them. And then pushti, you're nourished. You're nourished by that experience. Your soul is nourished. Every time we read in the Bhagavatam where Krishna appears before the devotee, whether it's Dhruva or whoever, the Prachetas, whatever it may be, it's just a completely fulfilling experience. Why do I want anything more? Simply to see you and be in your presence. You see? So that's the para isha anubhava, direct experience. And then virakti, from the detachment from everything else. These 3 occur practically simultaneously for one who is fully surrendered to the Lord. So that's what we're striving for, you see, by disciplining the senses and the mind and using whatever facility we have, the senses, the mind, the intelligence, wealth, whatever, in the service of the Lord, so it becomes purified. We take pleasure in that, what we have, because it's bringing Krishna pleasure, not because we're trying to enjoy it separately, you see. That's why, as we had the announcement last night, Dayanidhi Prabhu, about Janmashtami, this is the time to really, if you're going to give a donation, this is what, because it's a big thing. And people do. They take pleasure in giving that donation for the pleasure of Krishna. They come here and they see the beautiful form of Krishna smiling, and they've just given $1,000 or whatever it was, something significant. And that's pleasurable because they know Krishna is pleased with them for doing that, So that's really where the opulence comes in. No matter how much material opulence you have, a devotee takes pleasure only in using it. We heard that wonderful presentation that Mara had on Sunday, to build a temple for Krishna, to do something magnificent for Krishna, that will definitely please him. And that will facilitate others becoming Krishna conscious. That's why the temple construction is so important. So that's how you can use your opulence, and possessing it means being pleased in Krishna's possessing it. Isn't that a way to possess it? You see, Krishna has all of these wonderful ornaments that he wears, and so many of the beautiful verses, like I'll just share one with you. I don't have a poem for it, but I remember I was reading the Bhakti Samrita Sindhu, where it had been translated, we got that with all the Sanskrit. And even though we haven't word by word, this one was so easy that I figured it out. Kwanata kanaka kinkani kalapam, smitamukamudjvala nasikagramuktam, kadadita navanita pindamangre tani hamaveksha nananda patni. I mean, that's such wonderful saying, Nanda Patni. Who is Nanda Patni? Does anyone remember? Yeah, the wife of Nanda. Nananda means she's ecstacized. You need to resurrect this word. It's a very nice English word. Ecstacized. She's in ecstasy to see her little son, Krishna, crawling toward her. This is the Kvanita Kanaka Kinkini. Kinkini are the waist bells. Kvanita Kanaka Kinkini Kalapam. So they're tinkling very sweetly. The golden waist bell. Kalapam. Smita Mukham, smiling face. He's little Smita Mukham Ujjvala Nasikagramuktam, and he has this pearl affixed to his ear. He doesn't have the ring. The rings are for the gopis, for Radharani. but just affixed here. And he has a effulgent pearl. And Kwanata Kanakingan, Smita Bukamudula Nasikagramuktam, a effulgent pearl affixed there. Kada Jutanavanita Pindam. And in his hand, he's holding a ball of fresh butter. You see? I'm sure there's probably 100 million altars in India where people have this form, isn't it? Because I've seen this. It's a very common thing that people get. Yeah, you probably... Huh? Laddu Gopal, yeah. You got a laddu in there, or he's got a butterball in this particular verse. So he's smiling, you know, can you imagine? And he's not wearing anything else. He's got the bells, and he's got the butter and the pearl, and that's it. So he's crawling toward her, smiling at her, and she's just blissed out. You know, nananda patni. Nananda means put into ecstasy. It's just an image, you know. So the point is, if you get into that shloka and you're devotee and you're meditating on that, you know, it's not that you're gonna, why can't I have some of that butter? No. It's just it's just that you're taking pleasure in remembering Krishna in that way, and the relationship between Radha and Krishna, between Krishna and Yashoda. And so that's always there. In the spiritual world, that remembrance, you may be separated from them, that just increases it, and then when you see it happen, you know, and even though I learned this thing about, all right, then I'll just stop, I'm sorry, I'm getting too far afield. But devotees would periodically ask me over the years, well, what is this? You know, Krishna's his original form, he's always in the adolescent form in Goloka. But what about Mother Yashoda and the baby form? That's not there, you know? And finally, I researched it a little bit and said, in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna appears in just the form that you want to love him. So even though he has the adolescent form, he's playing with the boys and meeting with the gopis, you know, and everything. But when for Mother Yashoda and her friends, Krishna would manifest that form for them. And he'll be crawling around with the butter in his hand. So it's not that if you go to Goloka, you're never going to be able to see that if that's your mood. If you want Krishna in that form, he will show himself in that form. So anyway, there's so much beyond here. Eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours, but the real wealth and the real opulence is just to be there with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, and you know, the ideal atmosphere, and for expressing these different moods in the different services. Then you're completely satisfied. And you know, there's one verse, there's an argument, there's a play argument between I think Srivas Thakur and Sub Damodar, which is more opulent, Goloka Vrindavan, I mean, you know, Vrindavan, or Vaikuntha, like in Dwarka. So Sridhar said, in Dwarka there's all of these palaces, and they're decked with these decorations of gold and pearls and all this stuff, you know. And Vrindavan, you just got a few flowers and trees, you know, what's going on there? So he says, no. He says the greatest opulence actually is, it says the trees that the gopis, you know, get the flowers to decorate them, those are desire trees. And then the land they're working on, that's Chintamani, you know, more valuable. And if he's in the Dwarka part of Goloka, you know, then it has to be very opulent. If they got the queens, you know, he's in that. That's also there. But more opulent than that, even more intense, more advanced, is the Sylvan area of Vrindavan, where he can enjoy all the different rasas, you know, and especially the conjugal rasa. So that's my halting understanding of this particular verse. Any questions, comments? Go ahead.
So some have the as you were mentioning, there's the conception that Krishna's infant or toddler pastimes are not there in Goloka Vrindavan. So were you saying that that's an error, that understanding? Yeah. And what's the main reference for that actually Krishna's toddler and infant pastimes are there in part of his Goloka Vrindavan pastimes?
All right, I'll have to find that for you. But I think I sent it off to one of my consultants I think, either Kishore, who's a Sanskrit scholar, Gopi Pranadhan is one of his prime students. But I'll get that for you, and it's probably there, one of the commentaries, Vishwanath Chakravarti or something. It could be in Gopal Champu also, but I'll track it down. But it was really
are there not references for the other conception about Krishna's infant and toddler pastimes not being in Goloka Vrindavan, but being in Gokula Vrindavan?
Are there not references for the?
Would you say there are not references?
No,
for
I
this other conception?
never read anything like that. It was always kind of thing that the prime form, the manifestation, original form of Krishna is this adolescent form, and okay, but when he was here on Earth, then he also enacted these childhood pastimes. And during that time, Yashoda was enjoying it, and we have all these writings in what we, celebrate during Kartik. So, and then, the question would just come up, okay, well, he's in this eternal adolescent form. What about the baby pastimes? And no one really could answer it. But within the last 6 months, I got that understanding that he manifested because of the desire of the devotees there to have him in that form and relate to him in that way, which is a very important rasa. He will manifest that form for them, and he'll be relating to them, and they'll see him that way and deal with him as a little baby. So I'll track that down for you.
Okay, but at least as per your knowledge right now, there isn't any reference for this other conception that Krishna's baby pastimes are just Gokula and not Goloka or anything like that.
No.
And so it's not clear to you where this is coming from.
Yeah, because there's always that understanding that in Goloka you have these these basically four rasas. You have the servanthood, and also this is Shanta ras to some degree. The flute, I think, is just waiting to be served, be of service. And they're progressive. If you read the Bhakti Rasamrita or the portion of the CC that deals with the teachings of Rupa Goswami, then it describes that, these are the rasas that are there. That Krishna even has his some of his friends are like servants. Some of them are protective of him. So there's a spectrum. It's not such hard and fast. So it seems like certainly the friendship one, and the parental in terms of when he's older, that type of parental rasa could be there when he's just that right. But the little baby pastimes that really basically just the elder gopis and especially Mother Yashoda and Nanda enjoy. That wasn't obvious that it was there, but that idea that there he can manifest whatever form he wants, and that he makes that available for them in that way, so that they can also relate to him that way. So I'll look it up. Anyone else? Bhakti Chad?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the enlivening lecture.
Hare Krishna.
So in the Shastras, it describes Krishna as being the color of a monsoon rain cloud, which is dark blue, right?
That's one of the analogies, monsoon cloud.
But in a lot of the pictures, he's light blue. How do you see Krishna? No, I'm just kidding.
to be honest, I've never seen a monsoon rain cloud. I don't know what it looks like. But he's often compared to a certain kind of lotus, Indivara. There's an Indivara lotus which is said to be very, close to his complexion. Now I'd have to research that, but I have a website, Flowers of India, and it's a lot of these flowers that we read about. You can't get the fragrance, not yet anyway. But it's got pictures, so I'll look in there. But as far as the monsoon rain cloud, there's one verse. These verses are leaving me when I need them the most. That second line describes what he looks like. Nava Jaladada Kidanolasid. Kidana are the rays of the sun. Navajaladala means a fresh rain cloud in the sky with the sun behind it. So there's the effulgence, you see. In other words, a kid in Orlasad Angam, his limbs are that color of a cloud, a new cloud with the sun shining through it. So, and I'll send you this link with the Indivra lotus, and you can see, oh, this is the colors, you know. But I don't know, how to reconcile those things. But the really advanced devotees, when they see the clouds in the sky, they go into ecstasy. When they see one that looks, the same color of Krishna, then they'll fall on the ground in ecstasy. We'll see. Try to achieve that this lifetime. Something? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Earlier, you were talking about how once you attain knowledge, you also attain detachment at the same time, and then.
It's supposed to work like that. Yeah, if it's really realized knowledge, sure.
And then Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, like, what is it, chapter 2, text 11, he's calling for us to give up our limitation.
Did you say 2:11?
Yeah.
2:11.
So
2:11 is.
You speak and learn their words,
Yes.
Yeah. But of the nature of the soul is to have relationships, what's like good for us? Like, why is it good for us to lose like loved ones, you could say?
Well, you're talking about like someone who takes sannyas or even serious brahmachari, and the relationships become attenuated or even end. You give up because so much of Maya is expressed through these intimate relationships with the family. Like for instance, the parental ras, which Prabhupada says is the closest to the selfless love that you find in America. The mother's love for a newborn child, Now, the newborn child doesn't know much about what's going on. He just knows that there's this big, warm, source of nourishment and happiness and security, and that if she's around, I'm happy, Right? She's not crying. So, but that's ultimately a material attachment, because it's not Krishna you're attached to. So, within the family life, generally, people come attached, and there's the job, and there's the wife, and the children, and the house, and the extension, and the bank account, and all of the different things, and they all become very extreme attachments. And if you suddenly you lose your job or something, there's the other side of it, which is lamentation and loss, and so that's why this is called grihamedi life. Grihamedi, it's not grahasta. It's just attached family life. This was the first instruction. The first time Prahlad talked to Hiranyakashipu, when at least that's recorded here, what did you learn today? What's the best thing you learned? And he's talking about family life. Tatsadamunneya sudavada dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asadgrahat, holding on to the impermanent. Hit vatmapatam griham andakupam, the blind well of materialistic family life. That's the general expression of Maya. That's where people are attached, and so that's why there's this tradition of brahmacharya going away to the Gurukul, to attenuate that attachment, or especially sannyas, where Prabhupada did that and his family was devastated. It was a surprise. He was leaving all the time on business and coming back, leaving on business. So when he left the last time, he said, "Oh, he'll be back." This is where his wife sold his Bhagavatam to get the tea biscuits. And he said, it's going to be tea or me. So she thought he was just joking. Says, well, I think I'll take the tea. So he left. He never came back. He took vanaprastha. He didn't take sannyas till later, And then he was doing all that writing and stuff. And BTG, But he was alone. So it's very traumatic. And oftentimes, it's very traumatic for those who you leave behind. But it has to be done for the sake of preaching, for the sake of advancement. And so Prabhupada accepted that. And he gave it, to some of his prime students, because it facilitates the preaching. You show by example. Last night we heard that lecture about, your lecture about hypocrisy. Well, one way which you show your seriousness is by really demonstrating the detachment, living very simply, traveling all the time, which is also a big austerity ultimately, especially when you get older, and giving up that attachment to the family, which is often the big andakupa blind well. But you know, that the famous verse by Rishabdev, Pungsastriya mituni bhavametang tayo mato hridaya grantamahu adanta gobhir visatam tamistram punak punaschovada. No, that's the other verse. Pungsastriya mituni bhavametang tayo mato hridaya grantamahu. Oh, jeez, I really have to review these verses. No one knows this verse? Whereas, how's the third line? Ato, thanks, Prabhu. Ato grihat chet. I think I helped you on this first one. It's the first line. Thank you. So giving me. Ato grihat chet sutabda vitto janasimoho yamahamameti. This is ahamameti. This is the problem. I and mine, right? This is false ego. So it starts with the sex attraction. Pungsas tuya mituni bhavam. Mituni bhavam is the mood of sex, you know. And when they actually engage, pungsas mituni bhavam tayo mitho griham ties the knot very tightly. Tayo mitho vidya grantamahu. And then it gets more tight, because you expand. It says ata, then griha. Then you have to have a place, you know. Unless it's completely degraded, you know, okay, we'll get married. Griha, Cheta, Sutta, Apta, Vita, one after another. The place, the children, the Griha, the job, the first thing is Cheta, is a job or a plot of land. Griha, Chetra, Sutta, Apta, Vita. And relatives, that's another big attachment. And of course, money, Vita. Janasya moho yamam generates so much illusion, moha yamahamameti, in the form of the false ego of I and mine. So cutting that off means, you know, going to the forest. You know, we hear in the Bhagavatam, they go, oh, the kings, even the kings, they're going to the forest, away from the family, away from the whole thing. That's the big, that's why it's part of it. I'm sorry, we have to adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.